Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome. My name is Paul Godoldig, and I have the honor of serving as the CEO of the JCC of San Francisco. On behalf of all of us, I'm very excited to welcome you to Canbar Hall for tonight's program, Kosher Soul, with Michael W. Twitty and Magid Jos Singer. So thank you all for coming out tonight. I can't even tell you how lovely it is to see real people live and in person. So we have our partners this evening include Omnivore Books, one of our favorite local bookstores, and our wonderful media sponsor, KALW 91.7 FM, where you can hear this show and many other amazing guests on Bina. It appears every Thursday at 2 p.m., so tune in. And finally, of course, there's you. Your participation and your generous support of the JCC helps us to continue to do our meaningful work here at the J that serves people across the lifespan. And I've seen all of it just in today, from preschool to summer camp to youth sports, fitness, swim lessons, gatherings to share and celebrate Jewish culture and Jewish life, lifelong learning with adult classes and programs. So thank you again for your support of the center. We wouldn't be here without you. And now for tonight's program. Michael W. Twitty is a noted culinary and cultural historian and the creator of Afro Culinaria, the first blog devoted to African-American historic foodways and their legacies. He has been honored by firstwefeast.com as one of the 20 greatest food bloggers of all time, and named one of the 50 people who are changing the South by Southern living. HarperCollins released Twitty's The Cooking Gene in 2017, in which he traced his ancestry through food from West and Central Africa to America, and from slavery to freedom. The Cooking Gene won the 2018 James Beard Award for Best Writing, as well as its Book of the Year, making him the first Black author so awarded. He's here this evening to talk about his latest book, Kosher Soul, the faith and food journey of an African-American Jew. Part memoir, part history, and part cookbook, it melds culinary chutzpah and soul into recipes and stories that showcase the overlapping flavors of the African and Jewish diasporas. Appearing in conversation with Michael Twitty this evening is Magid Jos Singer. Magid Singer serves the JCC of San Francisco as a community Jewish educator, where he founded Queer Core Talmud, a queer normative Svara method Beit Midrash or learning community. Magid Singer is a professional Jewish educator, community and congregational leader, writer, and speaker. As an out trans man, Jos is deeply committed to recognizing the holy in each human he encounters. Jos seamlessly engages his students in conversation about Jewish spirit, text, story, tradition, and being. He is a past congregational leader of Chochmat Halev and of the Coastside Jewish community. His teachings can be found in Torah Queries, Balancing on the Mechitza, at GTU, and Eli Talks. And I've had the opportunity to hear these two in conversation, so I already know that you're in for a real treat tonight, and I know that you're going to enjoy the evening. And now, let's give a warm JCCSF welcome to Michael Twitty and Magid Jos Singer.
Well, that felt good.
Yeah.
Thank you all. It is so nice to have living, yes. What an incredible blessing to be back in person and to have this holy person be the one who inaugurates our series this year. Start with a blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach haolam. She'achianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Blessed is the source of everything, who has sustained us and has watched over us and has guided us to this very moment at this very time. Amen, amen. It's my practice when I am engaging in learning, which is what we're going to do tonight, to dedicate my learning to someone or something that has been a guide or even an adversary who helped me sharpen my edge along the way. And so tonight I encourage you, if you're here with that spirit and there's somebody who helped you be here tonight, then maybe just take a moment in your heart and dedicate your presence here to this conversation, to those people who have been your guides, or to someone's memory, or if someone needs the energy that you're going to raise tonight for healing, you can send this to them that way. I'm dedicating my learning tonight to my teacher, my Rav, who passed away recently, the Holy Rachel Brody, who was the CJO here at the JCC, and it's because of her that I'm here. Amen. And to my friend Baruch, who is in a health situation and needs some love. Anybody want to dedicate?
Yeah, my dad, who passed away at 83, and right after the second Seder. And the other person is Sylvester.
Amen.
Because I'm in that town, and who my millennial husband unfortunately calls Sebastian, like the crab in The Little Mermaid. Like, no, that's not. But for real, my good friend and mentor and family, Chef Wanda Blake, I never forget when she gave me her $2 tour of San Francisco as a San Francisco native and said, "That's the first place I saw Sylvester and the Cockettes." And I'm like, wow. Yes, that's legendary. But for some of us who value that, you said something back there about representation. And I'm so glad that we live in a world where you have a strange loop, but before a strange loop came a Sylvester and so many other queer men of color who never gave up.
Yeah.
This is, we dedicate this to never giving up.
Amen.
Amen.
You never give up. You only just got started, my friend. This is only book 3, right? Yeah, okay, we need some more. But I had the great pleasure of getting to, dive into this. And I would say it's cheesecake. It's rich. You have really shown up. Not that you don't, but you've really shown up in these pages in really courageous and brave ways, and in funny ways, and generous ways. Let's start with the most obvious thing. Let's take a look at one of these menus.
Okay,
and maybe
sure.
we can just play with that for a second.
Sure.
So in the back of the book, which y'all are going to buy because it's beautiful and you want this in your life, Michael has put a bunch of sample menus based on this, this journey that you've been on of the fusion, the places of tension, the places of funny, the bringing of together. So because we're here in the Great Bay Area where we've got like the weirdest, right? Everybody here knows that when you invite somebody to dinner, you have to find out what you can't serve, right? Isn't that right? Yeah, and that's love. And let me tell you something. When you don't serve those things and you figure out how to make something with water, because at the end of the day, that's all you're left with, that is creativity and that is love. So let's go with the Vegivore Shabbat dinner. So challah or vegan challah, black-eyed pea hummus, Ethiopian collards or kosher soul collards, ginger cumin and garlic roasted vegetables, couscous or millet salad, green salad with peach balsamic vinaigrette, yam kugel, and fresh fruit. I would love you to talk a little bit about those kosher soul collards.
Okay.
Because there is a good story with that in this book.
So one of the, if you're in a black kitchen, your best friend, well, maybe not always your best friend. You stop laughing. You know what I'm about to say, is that red and orange bottle Laries. If you're really bougie, it's McCormick. Right? And if you're really out there, it's like some homemade blend, your own blend of seasoned salt. If you're Jewish, it's awesome chicken broth.
Yes.
And there's no chicken in it. It's just
Not even close.
It's consommé. But I'm promising you, it's like the Jewish adobo. Like you put that in anything, oh my God. And the thing about it, it's not just Ashkenazi, it's Kol Yehudim. Because like everybody, I don't care if it's like, Tabit, I don't care if it's Plov, I don't care if it's Kugel. You put the spoonful of the osam in it, everybody goes, this is so tasty. Of course it's tasty. It's salt, sugar, and fat, for God's sakes. With a little bit of onion. Mitzvah. You know what? I rue the day I ever had middle school, I taught Hebrew school for 15 years. I rue the day I ever said the word syphilis in front of them. I'm lucky I didn't lose my job. Mr. Twitty, tell us about syphilis today. No, syphilis, mitzvah, which is Yiddish for onion, right?
Yes, it is.
So, y'all like, oh wow, there are. Well, that's the joke, right? Shum gets it up and Sybilis takes it down. Some of you know what I said. Okay, we'll leave it alone. So, my next book is about, being queer in the kitchen. So I've decided to be called Eggplants and Peaches. So. This is already
You
fun.
work it. Mm-hmm.
Yes, honey, yes. So, but for real, it's kind of like the one that's done with the other. I put kosher lamb bacon in, and grow and behold. So now that there are better choices for a sustainable kosher meat, if you choose to go that route, you can do that. But if you don't, you don't. And the reason why the vegivore and vegetarian, vegan/vegan, whatever you want to do, is so important is because, in black Jewish traditions that are not part of the mainstream community, vegetarianism has long been an important theme. Now, I want to be very careful about what I say, because this is a very controversial issue even among Jews of color. Because there are different communities, they are not all halakha communities, but they are certainly adjacent. And there are lots of people who come in and out of that world into mainstream Judaism and back and forth. So there is a deep vegetarian, soul vegan, that's a whole black Hebrew movement. Not the people in the corner with the funkadelic cast-off clothes. Not those people. They're like, you're black, you're white, we hate all of y'all. That's not them. We're talking about the more like Afrocentric biblical folk. And then there's a whole other group of us that basically came about 100 years ago in Harlem and New York, other places, that practice basically traditional Orthodox Judaism. Then there's those of us who have gone in and out of the yeshiva world and gone in and out of mainstream Judaism and made our own path, or those of us who are just in there with the rest of us. And that's so important that these recipes that you see, the yam kugel, for example, comes from Mrs. Mildred Covert of blessed memory, who I had the pleasure to meet in Louisiana. And it was the real dry Miss Daisy, the real deal. And she was no joke. She had on the blood red shoes, the black and white leopard print blouse. And the only thing I heard from her was, get in. And that was it. So I'm getting in the car with her and her former Hebrew school student who's now a journalist, going around New Orleans, learning about, her matzo ball gumbo was the source of Marcy Cohen Ferris's title for her dissertation. Mm-hmm. But she had done 3 cookbooks.
Wow.
And those 3 cookbooks, she happily admitted. She said the source is the black women that we grew up around and worked for these families on Dryad Street, New Orleans. Yeah. And so the yam kugel comes from her. So you can do the vegetarian thing is part of, I guess one should say that if people don't know black religious history, the black Muslim, some aspects of Yoruba, Kemetic, Akan religion in the African American community, and the black Hebrew and black Jewish movements all had dietary aspects to how they practiced. Because the idea was, we're not just going to reform the mind but the body. So all that history is in that one menu. But also just like, hey, if not chickpeas, then black eyed peas. Hey, if not, let's take the things that we have that we know have medicinal value: cumin, ginger, garlic, turmeric, things like that. I mean, you have to read these. There's a ton of menus. I even have like a Juneteenth cookout menu. Be careful who you invite to cookout. Let's just say right now, Ron DeSantis is not allowed to cookout ever. My trans family, I stand with you. We're not going back. So.
No, we're not going back.
But like all the stuff that's in there, like Kwanzaa, but also Sigid, the traditional Ethiopian holiday, happens in November. I want to pay homage to all of that. All of that.
Amen. Yes. And, creating those crossover places where you can create something that is going to be within 90 different boundaries, right? Because so much of what you're talking about in this book, and you even at the beginning, you quote Tema Smith, and she says, this mashup, it's here to stay. Like none of us have got these crystalline identities anymore. The binary is, 99.9% of us live somewhere in between the binary, right? Someplace in the spectrum, in truth of our full identities, right? Not just gender, but the whole 9 yards. And when we cross one of those boundaries, which is so much what your book is about, the moments when you find yourself crossing a boundary and somebody reacting to it, sometimes really offensively, sometimes really beautifully. But when you are able to create a menu that is going to get the least amount of burn back, where somebody can go, well, but, okay, there is no pork, okay, well, but there is no that, but, right? And you like eat already, right? Like you can eat this. It's okay, you can eat it, right? Before I transitioned, I worked at Pete's, and at Pete's Coffee, which is, right, I was a barista there and then became a tasting trainer, whatever, it's a long story. But when I was still a barista, there was a guy who came in, and I was in my neo-Hasidic days. So I was female presenting, and I had tzitzit and kippah, and I said Baruch Hashem every 30 seconds. I was like on fire about Hasidism and everything. I was just burning it up. And this guy comes in, and he was an odd dude, and he was a little twitchy and kind of weird, and he kept saying, "You remind me of somebody. You remind me of somebody." And I was like, okay. And then the next day, the same thing. And one day he comes in, and I'm working with my friend Martin, who's like Norwegian, and he slams his hand down on the counter, and he goes, "I got it. You remind me of Sammy Davis Jr." Oh no, me and Martin looked at each other and we were like, what? But what he was saying is, you don't look Jewish to me. And neither does Sammy Davis Jr. And it was like this, whoa. Like, that's what you see. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. Somebody put a big name tag on my locker that said Sammy Davis Jr.'s lock. But I think I say that story because I kept thinking of it as I was reading the book. Yeah. Places that you've walked into.
Constant.
And they don't see.
Constant.
And they're trying to grab onto something that they can, orient you.
Yeah, they try to figure you out. What are you? Mm-hmm. It's interesting because we talk about trans identity. And when I began to really listen to my trans friends, especially Jewish ones, talk about how they presented, what they said, and everything, I was like, I'm getting some notes now, some things I can identify with. When I first became part of the community 20-some years ago, I had a black hat, I had the black suit, the white shirt, the tzitzis, the big beard. My mother was around then, blessed memory. She said, "You'll never fly on a plane again." But I mean, for us, there was more than one. Us young black men who were in that particular community and communities at the time. You know, that fedora didn't mean the same thing it meant to other people. It wasn't just Chabad. Like it was channeling the respect and stature of our grandfathers. Our grandfathers never, I mean, think 40s, 50s, 30s, okay? The hat, the suit, all the time. Now I promise you, you will hardly find a picture of a black grandfather from that time that don't have a suit and hat on. The dignity, the pride, all the pictures of them going to, I mean, there's a picture somewhere of my grandparents going to church with the kids, all dressed up. Everybody's dressed up. So for us, that does have a certain resonance. But how do you get people to go away to accept that, but also accept the fact that you're also wearing the uniform, as my Nishanan puts it, of the community, and there are many uniforms.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I may do that in the future, but if right now, this is what I do. But it's just like it gets to the point where we've begun to say to ourselves and say to other people, I am a citizen, I am not a guest.
Amen. Yes.
And I told my students, I said, you know, part of what goes on is I want you to be able to go into the world with that same mentality. Because some of my kids thought, oh, everything's good for me. I said, oh, you were from a Reform synagogue, from a conservative synagogue. I said, is your mother Jewish? Well, no, but my father, I said, exactly. I see you as Jewish. I know that you're Jewish. I'm helping raising you as a Jew. You're a teacher. I'm helping raising you. But I want you to understand that there may come a day when people may look past your white appearance and everything else and may judge you. And I began to realize that I was actually coaching my students in ways that I wished I had been coached or given wisdom. Because they weren't used to that. They thought, I'm white, it's all good. I'm Jewish, it's all good. I got a Jewish last name. I'm white, it's all good. And then I started hearing the stories. Well, I went to the hotel and they asked me some questions and they were like, oh. And I said, don't you dare. You look them in the face, you tell them, are you going to ask everybody who comes up in here if they're this, I'll check all the boxes off? No. So go meet your God and leave it with God. You know, this is something that we need to talk about. That Jews of color, Jews of African descent, bring incredibly valuable conversations and wisdom to the community. We don't even know our history. Not one person in this whole space has ever learned the history of black Jews in America in terms of barely even Jews in America in a religious school setting or other learning setting. You know, the first time we appear in the historical record of America is Solomon, the mulatto Jew. They can't even spell it right. J-U-E. In the 1600s in Massachusetts. You know how we know about him? From his arrest record. So the first Negro Jew that walked around in America was profiled. How deep is that? An arrest record for a brother on the street. What was his crime? Profaning the Christian Sabbath. Because he dared walk on the street on a Sunday. So, the intersection of the West's oldest sins, other than, of course, misogyny, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, etc. and then some, classism, anti-Semitism, and anti-blackness, married in one document to a British black Jewish man born 4 centuries ago. Akunta Kinte, as it were. You know, that's deep. And then there's other people that follow him. I really wanted to write a whole ass chapter on our history that would go on for on and on. But then I realized, nah, we can all do that together. We can work on that together. Because it's bricolage history. Marginalized and oppressed people don't have linear stories that are easy to trace. Mm-hmm. And it's also, when people think about religion, first of all, in African Atlantic context, I use that term African Atlantic a lot. Religion doesn't function the way you think it does. It's not just strictly within the lines of Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Yoruba or Akan or Igbo tradition or Wolof tradition or Congo tradition, etc. It can actually be all of the above in different ways. And so that's important to mention. But for me, food is the thing that kind of like, I don't want people to get a kumbaya thing from when I talk about food, because I want people to understand something. Just because you eat the food of the other doesn't mean you understand or like the other. Right. I mean, Stephen Miller loves Mexican food. Hope he chokes on it.
Taco bowl.
But that doesn't mean he doesn't understand it. I mean, there's this hilarious story from, you're gonna love this one, from North Carolina from like 2 or 3 years ago. They had this huge Klan meeting, but they went to like one of the biggest black soul food businesses to get the catering. I would have done a kizzy and roots. I would have spat in every pot. But I mean, think about it. Like you still have to come to us for everything. 300 years later.
Right.
I mean, you have an original thought, do you? I mean, wow. But that's what this is about. It's like the restaurants in Eastern Europe where, I don't know if you've heard about these, where they're Eastern European Jewish themed.
Oh yeah.
Like in Poland, Ukraine, it's like,
yeah.
Ugh, really? And then part of there's all this memorabilia, and then part of the joke is that you haggle over the price of the food. I'm like, well, okay, bye. But why do these things persist? What's going on? I mean, that's another book question for another time. But for me, like, that's my world. You know, trying to understand where I fit as an American. We are all intersectional. Thank you, Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. We are all intersectional. That term really does belong to what she defined it as originally, about the situation of black women. But we can expand it out a little bit more to understand that we are all part of this interesting matrix of a new life that our ancestors could never have dreamed of.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and we're all holding a history,
Yes.
many histories. We
Yes.
all are holding many histories, and you know, we live in a time of forgetfulness. You know, I had a little quote here. I don't even know where it came from. It was on my desk. I don't know why I wrote it down, but it seemed like something that was going to come up tonight, and it just did. It's painful to remember loss, but it's worse to forget it.
That's it.
And we have been trained to forget it. We've been trained to like just make it nice, clean it up, don't go there. And I think that we're in a place right now where we have to go there. We have to go to the broken places. We have to look at the pieces. We have to decide what's worth carrying with us. You know, my teacher, B'nai Lappi Shlita, is famous for this thing that she calls the crash theory, which is that every master story, you know, the thing that answers all your questions, what am I supposed to, you know, we all are looking for that master story that's going to tell us who we are, how to love, what it all is about, what's going to happen when we die, what's my purpose, blah, 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 blah. You could all come up with 95 more, you know, versions of what are those big questions we all walk around that keep us awake at night. And we latch onto these answers. And we go, yes, I found the answer. This is great. I know what it's all about. And you go chugging along with that master story, and it will inevitably crash.
Right.
And when it crashes, human beings have a tendency to do one of three things. Buckle down on that master story. Deny the crash. This ain't happening. Queer people do this all the time. We go running back into the closet. We put off transition. We do all of that stuff because It's so terrifying what's going to happen to me if I actually leave my master story. But then, you know, in the case of queerness, you fall in love with somebody. It makes it a lot easier to leave your master story when you got a brand new, juicy master story over there. It's like, I'm joining a lesbian separatist community in Oregon, and it's, you know, there's going to be no man, and it's going to be awesome, right? And you live in that master story for a while, and you're like happy. And then that one crashes because you're like, oh shit, I'm trans. And now I have to walk between my master stories. Now I'm being pushed into what she calls option 3, where there is no master story.
Right.
The master story is a kaleidoscope. And you, my friend, are such a kaleidoscope. You are just the most sparkly, beautiful, you know, the colors are all over the place, and they're broken, and you manage to make them beautiful. And that's why we want to talk to you. Like, how do we do that?
Like,
how do we heal ourselves?
what you just said about like moving from, I thought I was this, I thought everything was settled, but it's not. What about the brokenness? What about the bad stuff? What about I think some of the old school wisdom in being black and Jewish, or black or Jewish, is partly through the food. Okay, so in the cooking gene, I talk about I'm not gonna pronounce it because I always mess up the word, but the Japanese art of using gold to repair things that are broken. And that is the model for, I thought, a beautiful way of expressing what it means to be an African American. But even more so, all of this. So here's my spiel. I usually say this. So we're the only two peoples on the face of the earth that demand you eat awful things. Am I right? Am I right? Wait, hold up.
Can I say my roar?
Like, my mother, blessed memory, eat this. Why? It's nasty. Why I gotta eat it then? It's nasty. My mother was a perfectionist. Why should I eat horrible food? You wouldn't even allow like a burnt cookie. No, I'm not gonna eat. You have to eat it. It's nasty. Jewish version. Eat it. Why? It's terrible. Then why am I eating it? Because it's terrible. You've never had anything that's terrible in your life. Why do we ask my mother one day, why do we have to eat our oppression? What's going on? Why ingest it? It's not just here and here and here. It's like, you know. And then we make those sounds, right? And if you're black, you make them part of your music. That's the blues. You know, the blues was invented by a brother who had some bad chitlins. And it was like, took him like 4 days. And everybody heard him hollering and wailing. Started playing the guitar. Lord, 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 I'm gonna see you soon. Lord, 'cause these chitlins are mine. That's the whole story right there.
Oh my God.
But like, we eat gefilte fish, for God's sake, which some of you adore. I guess some clubs you can join in that you got to be born in. I don't know. It's like Dr. Celery's soda. It's like, oh my, Dr. Brown's celery soda.
Yeah, that's we call that an acquired taste.
An acquired taste. But you know, this is interesting. It's like, but then there's other things we do which are sort of painful but sort of pleasurable. Like, there is no reason to eat certain foods except for hot sauce. Or Miss Wanda's chow chow. Like, if I told you, eat this Africa hot chow chow, all jar to yourself, you could do that, but you're Michigan, right? It's you know, I could tell you, eat the whole bottle of Crane. Crane is delicious, but if you ate it by itself, you'd be like, yeah, you're a little off. So you have this rabbinic fiction known as Gefilte Fish. which you use a vehicle to get the horseradish into your mouth. You have the other side to get the chow chow into your mouth, the hot sauce into your mouth. And that's our legal fiction that we use to excuse criminal behavior. But only blacks and Jews do this. Also, when we sit around eating, we talk about the next food we're gonna have. This is what people in constant exile do. And it's like, what are we gonna have next? You're sitting around at Seder. You're sitting around at Sunday dinner. You have all this food in front of you that someone took hours when I was prepared, but only thing y'all can talk about is the next thing you're gonna eat. Like, what? There's something very powerful about this. And I grew up in a multicultural area outside of Washington, D.C. I was around the Chinese, the Italians, the Greeks, some of the oldest food cultures in the world. These things didn't happen. But black folks and Jewish folks have every single time. And if I may say so, blacks, Jews, chicken, it's real and it's deep. It's just, It's a part of us. Onions is a part of us. You know, it's like the fact that we used food, our mothers, the women used food to express love when they knew that their children could be the victims of enslavement or genocide at any moment. They never knew when the ball was going to drop. So they prayed over the food. And those prayers became part of the traditions. You know, in Yiddish culture, tachinas, the idea that I'm going to pray, I mean, this is glorious, rich, vulnerable prayers where the women are like pouring their heart to God about a kugel, about a cholent, about a challah. And that sounds strange, but this was part of the Torah of the women, along with the Saint Irene and other texts and things that they did. And I remember my grandmother, like the whole thing, there's songs, there were prayers, there were all these things, and then there was the beautiful tablecloth, and then the candles, and my grandfather would go, oh, Hazel, do you think you're born the purple? I didn't know what that meant. Or do you think you're rich blood is what it kind of was saying. And my grandmother would say to my grandfather, if you don't shut up, because God is coming to this dinner. And I remembered that. God is coming to this dinner. God is a guest. And I learned that my great-grandfather would actually say this, to say that this is actually old Southern Black Christian thing, that Jesus Christ is always a guest at our table. That's why there were no fights. That's why there was no nonsense. So you put all that together, the reverence, the holiness, the idea that you can't control the other parts of the master narrative, but you can control that moment of satisfaction, happiness, healthiness, wholeness, familyhood. Yeah. You can take that with you. Yeah. That's the real part of what I do. You know, I believe in us. I believe in our ability to survive and overcome. There's a reason why, you know, whether it's Independence Day or Drag Race, they pick a black and a Jew to save the world. Say I'm wrong. Say it right. Every single time. I don't care if it's Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. Keep picking a black and a Jew to save the world. You know, I don't care if it's RuPaul and Michelle Visage. Can't say her name out without pronouncing it. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So it's all the above. The other pairing, Jeff Goldblum and get your wife's name in my mouth. I ain't gonna talk about that. You know, there is that.
Well, you're talking about love language, right?
Love language, yeah.
I was walking with my son, who is not the most effusive emotionally, right? He plays his cards pretty close to his chest. Really smart kid, and you know, we raised our kids having Shabbos dinner, and of course they hated it. We raised them, blessing them with, you know, before we ate, and they hated that. They jerked their heads around, and he's now. I've got 3 kids, and he's the middle. He's 24, and a couple of years ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, he got stuck at home. And we went for a walk one day, and I'm thinking, oh my God, poor guy, we're just driving him nuts, you know. And out of nowhere, he says, Dad, cooking is your love language. And I'd never heard that phrase, you know, love language, I'd never heard that before. And it like hit me in my bones that like people get it. Eventually they get it. If they're willing to come to your table, or you force them to come to your table in our kids' case, but if people are coming to your table, not just once, you know, but they know they can count on you to feed them right. Just sort of what I started out jokingly, but when you respect someone and their body and nourishing it and taking the time that we take. I worked as a cook for many, many years, and it takes, you know, it's a hard job. It's a big job. And when you put your love in it, which is what you're talking about with these, you know, with these bubbies and these aunties, that makes a difference in the world.
In my kitchen, I became a homeowner for the first time in my 40s, thanks redlining. And on the wall is my mother's, grandmother's, and great-grandmother's hot comb, but done like a mezuzah. So that when I walk into the room, I touch that hot comb and the mezuzah. You know, anybody who's a black or brown folk know about the kitchen being the hairstyling place. And the sound, the smell and sound of their little cousin, the niece, nephew, sister, grandma and mama hair burning in the kitchen, and the Afro sheen, which if you have a bad cook, keep the Afro sheen away from them because they may try to cook something in it. Baby. And all of that. I mean, just, and that very old Madam C.J. Walker hot comb that you have to put on a fire, on a stove to use. I kiss that thing, and I kissed it before I came here. That energy. I'm so grateful. Speaking of tables, the cover of the book, I didn't want to fail to mention this. You notice that there are all these halots in front of me. One is blue and white. One is black, red, and green. One is rainbow, like a pride holla. And then another one is like sprinkles, rainbow sprinkles, and like black, red, and green, and blue and white. And my lovely husband did that because I wanted the cover to really reflect the fact that I am not those things apart, I'm those things together. That the braiding, the wholeness is important. And I wanted the reader to feel as though every time that they read something, it was like we were having a conversation right now, talking with each other, having a repartee. It's something to imagine that we need to be in a different place as Americans, as black folks, as Jews. You know, the day ago I thought I put out this call a couple years ago and went unheard. But then I saw that the group of Asian Jews on Instagram I did an African American Seder plate. They did an Asian Jewish Seder plate. And I broke into tears. A lady came to my presentation at the Smithsonian and she showed me. And I cried because I said that the fact that this is out there means things are changing. Means things will never be the same again. Means that we're growing, we're overcoming, we're doing something, we're doing the work, and that somebody's child will be able to see themselves reflected in something anew that is, you know, expanding the boundary of Torah. You know, we talked about the embracing the impression through food, but also you just learn. Early in the book I talk about being on a bus, headed towards services, and I meet this great granola Jewish brother. And we're talking, I'm in my little black hat, and he's in his, you know, red clay sandals. And he never talked to me as if I wasn't. He just said to me, are you cool? Are you all right where you are? And I said, I gave all the like corporate answers. And he says, no, I mean, are you? And I said, do you love your people? And he said to me, I don't know if we can say that you love your people until they really piss you off. You still love them. And I knew exactly what he meant as a black person, as a gay person. I knew exactly what the hell he meant. Nobody annoys me more than LGBTQ people. And nobody annoys me more than black folks. Oh my God, Lord, chill, please, not today. Not today. Cornell, calm down, baby. Just comb your hair, wash your face, calm down. Please, Cornell. Don't get me wrong. I met Cornell on the train and gave him a copy of the Cooking Gene. He's a very nice man. But it's just like the little squibbles and things we see all the time. It's like, ah. And then Jews, oh my God, you annoy me. I love you, but my God. It's like I now understand why God said, you can't have meat and dairy. Like, before it was, okay, sure, just don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. Then it was like, oh, snap, you made a golden calf? Guess what? No cheeseburger. That's because of my mom would do, right? It's like, you didn't do what I told you to do? Guess what? But I say that with all due love and respect because it means you have to work with your people. You can't give up on them.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do. You have to take pause and say, okay, you know what? Let's find another way. Instead of just throwing your hands up and becoming, whatever, being negative, speaking lashon hara, negative speech about your people, about yourself, about who you are. No. You have to go back to the work. You can't give up on the work. The word, in Judaism, the word avodah, work, means also prayer. Right. In Latin, from English, precare, it's a Latin word of prayer. It means to beg. In Judaism, avodah means worship. It also means work, labor.
And serve.
And service. So which is more honest? Or, lehit palel, to go inside and judge yourself before you go and judge others. Before it's time for God to judge you. Have you done what you need to do? That's why I love Judaism. I'm also not ashamed to say that there's a lot of elements of African spirituality in my life and how important that is to me. And I'm coming to a place where there's no master story, but there are answers that I abide by. When your ancestors are like your board of directors, you know what's up.
That's right.
And you know what's not.
That's right.
You put mayonnaise on the pastrami sandwich. To hell with you.
You talked about being seen in one way as being contagious, right? That people can respond to those of us who are in the margins, who are the boundary crossers, who make people uncomfortable, whatever, right? But you also talked about, you said, I'm never alone if I have my people.
Right.
Right? And sometimes our people are a pain in the tuchus, let's face it, but because they're people. But you love them anyway, just like the guy on the bus said. And we love you very much.
Thank you.
You're a blessing.
Thank you.
Yeah. We want to open it up for questions. One thing we didn't really get into the way that food as sacrament, food as expression of self, food as a reminder, a placeholder, a symbol, all of those things. And I just want to say, like, with a full heart, that if you haven't already read The Cooking Gene, you must. It's a really important book. Yeah, if you're at all, if you recognize the importance of that what we put in our bodies has a story, and that it's a story that we are going to continue to tell. Cooking Gene does that proud. And this book is just amazing, covers a lot of those other bases. So I wanted to open it up to your questions. And I think somebody from over here has got the mic. And if you raise your hand, we can get your thoughts on things.
Take the first question here in the front.
Absolutely adore you, Mr. Twitty. Thank you for being here. Are you going to be involved ongoing with High on the Hog as they continue with more docuseries, or your own, or any other?
They better call a brother. No, we really want to. We've been doing these pilgrimages to West Africa with Black chefs who've never been to the continent, and we did a lot of filming in Benin. We're going to do some more in Cameroon next year, and do a whole 2 weeks there. So we're hoping to do that. It's really tough because on the one hand, I was in High on the Hog, right? But on the other hand, try going to the powers that be and the gatekeepers and those who control, like who gets to be on CNN Plus, or which is now defunct, or Discovery or HBO or whatever. Oh, y'all got one Black show that's successful? Well, that's great. We don't need no more. But Giada can have an Italian show, and Lydia can have an Italian show, and St. Latrice can have an Italian show, and there's like 8 other Italian shows. Can't get enough Italy. We got 60-some nations in Africa, and then an entire African diaspora, but can't represent all the myriad of narratives. So that's why I work hard to build up a platform so we can have these difficult conversations, right? It's really not that difficult because we both know there's an audience. We both know there's people who want to see real diverse content, not just a rehashing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Jewish food, when have you hardly ever seen Jewish food on television, other than as a bad joke? And I'm tired of that. I mean, if the face of pushing back against Jewishness as a joke is mine, I'm cool. I'm good with it. Because, the students who came through my classrooms, the ones I gave tefillin to, and, said that you could wear a kimono just the same as anybody else, because they're Japanese Jews and there's a heritage there. I mean, I'm proud of that revolution. I want people to be able to embrace the old, but also be the new. And maybe one day when our, production media are encouraged to tell more than just one kind of story, we can do that, hopefully soon. So from your lips to God's answering machine. Give me a sad shout.
On your right.
Hello. I wanted to ask you if you have a favorite breakfast that you like to usually have for breakfast.
Oh, that's tough. I'll tell you why it's tough. It's tough because if you know like the traditional Southern breakfast, Lord. It goes on, and it's also rife with like meat meets dairy. So how do you do like, and there's things I can't have, like on a regular basis, like really, really, really super special, 4 times a year kind of stuff. Now in Shemayim, in my dreams, of course, it's like, I'm really digging the like making my own sausage with the turkey and chicken and apple and that stuff. I'm digging that. But I'm also digging the lamb bacon, but I'm also like, I'm definitely a French toast waffles pancakes guy. I can't do it every day. I haven't been up for quite some time. Because it gives you the itis. Some of y'all know what the itis is. And I got too much to do. So, breakfast. But when I went to Israel the first time, I went twice. I remember, it was different. It was like, grapefruit juice and oranges and tuna salad and bagels and hard-boiled eggs. hummus and
Salad.
like salad for breakfast, wow. And that really changed some ways I looked at. So the millet salad, for example, you mentioned in the book, is a play on something that I learned from a chef from Kenya who's in North Carolina. He's a great activist. And he talks, millet is gluten-free, like many other African grains and foods. And it's just like, oh, millet, like couscous. Oh, with onions and tomato and pepper and bell pepper. And, our friends, our best friends. And you mix it up in, balsamic vinegar, a pinch of this, pinch of that, and you got something to eat. It's substantial, it's flavorful, it's yummy. And so just thinking about all of those things together, some things don't translate well. Some things, you got to do them one way. And other things translate incredibly well. Breakfast is like that meal where I'm always happier when somebody else prepares it. I know
exactly
if I
what
do
you're
it,
talking
I'm
about.
gonna do it right. But I'm also gonna be the last person to eat. And then my stuff is always not great. For the rest of the day, I'm mean. But let my husband do it. Oh, baby, I'm a smileless Negro ever around. You do all the cooking. That's right. I'm gonna sit there with the dog. We gonna chill. So that's me.
Any questions? Comment right here in the front.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I am a food writer, and I'm actually working on a project. I wanted to hear more, if you wouldn't mind, about your Sankofa garden at Williamsburg.
Yeah.
And some of the foods that you included in it, and sort of what it has kind of created or stimulated in that area.
So, there's a long tradition of having, trying to use living history sites to grow these reminders. I'm going to say this. So, for example, my good friend and colleague Eva Atmar, who is the landscapes manager in Williamsburg, we decided to put in black-eyed peas and gourds and pole beans and Bamberg groundnut and peanuts, different kinds of hot chilies, tomatoes, basil, sweet potatoes, lots of stuff.
And there are garden
Right, thank you.
descriptions in the book of different, it's fantastic. You want me to flip?
Thank you for
Yeah.
that, because there's an African American, Ashkenazi, and Sephardi garden, so all three. But even more so, right now the garden is situated across from the Bruton Parish Church in the central part of Williamsburg's market. And what's interesting about that is that people see it across from this traditional Anglican holy space, where my garden has antlers and skulls and beads and verses of the Quran and pages of the Bible and all the kinds of, the whole spectrum of black spirituality from the 18th century, and cowrie shells and gourds with sacred things in them, crystals. One day, Eve was trying to speak to the guests to, they were wearing certain attire that was red. I'll leave it at that. And the guests were like kind of giggling at what they thought was the superstitious ramblings of the Negroes. And he was like, no, you don't. And she made a point of saying, their God is there, but their God is everywhere. They turned their heads and left and were pissed off. Good. Our story, those gourds weren't just, they are the elevators, they're part of the gourds are homes for spirit. The gourds are also the root of the fiddle, the gourd drum, the gourd banjo, the roots of our music. These things are not unconnected. In Hebrew, what do we call instruments? Kled zmer, vessels of song. You see, I can't see the world in one lens anymore. It's all the above, Remind me to tell you about how one of my students, like on Twitter, was like, Mr. Twitty is my greatest influence in Hebrew school. What was the title of the article? The Jewish boys of OnlyFans. Okay. Next. Trust me, totally different conversation. No, I ain't teach the ass that. But you know something, right? Like, wow. Matt Gates, I am not. But like, that's what it is. It's like I can't see the world with one lens. It's all there for me. It's like, I literally, I have to go on a tangent because that's why I'm black and I'm Jewish and I'm gay. That's what we do.
Yeah, what else are you gonna do?
Like, he was like, I thought you would be upset with me because I do this. I told him, you know something? You are like Rabbi Yonatan and Resh Lakish. I said, Rabbi Yonatan had a job, which was to sit outside the mikveh, so that when the women walked by him on their way back to their husbands, they could gaze upon his beauty, that their sons and daughters might be as beautiful, he was androgynous, might be as beautiful as him. Now, we know what was up. He was so good looking, the women were like, damn, if I had that. And I told him, I said, you're Rabbi Yonatan. I said, yes, your beauty is for sale and it has a purpose. And as long as you respect your body and take care of your health and remember from whom you came and who you shall return, there is no shame to be had in your life. And he said to me, thank you. I needed that. I said, I know, because people think you should be not worthy of respect. Same thing with those ancestors. The garden is there to teach about food, religion, community. You know, those gardens worked at nighttime. There's a beautiful picture that me and my teacher, Robert Watson, did of us, like at nighttime. It was magical, with a full moon, with a torch, gardening. It was like a Renaissance painting. And we could feel the energy of the Egon with us. And it was like, this is what it was. I mean, they didn't have time during the daytime to work these gardens. They had to work them at night too, you know? And these gardens meant that their presence as Africans was on the land. And it stayed on the land. And so I love it when I always capture black people. You come in here, that's not a good choice of words. But like when they're going through, past the street in Williamsburg, I just drag them in. I'm like, nope. Because I know they're seeing all this white stuff, right? And I'm just like, no, here's our people. It's deeper than just cosmetic elements. It's in the ground. And if I could actually do a whole thing where we take them to the archaeology lab, let me tell you something. Archaeology lab there is so incredible. Most of the archaeology is that of the formerly enslaved. Like the amount of things our ancestors left behind. They left cowrie shells that they took all the way from Africa. That they held on for dear life. They left things they marked with symbols, Adinkra symbols, and Igbo symbols, Yoruba symbols. They preserved all of this. We had a text. And so part of the thing about the garden and other things about, the reason why I even used the garden here was Shawnee Mink, Jewish Farmers Network. So we get to talking and we're like, oh snap. So if you're black and you do the garden thing, I won't be no damn slave. That's not the kids, that was the kids and their parents and grandparents in the Great Migration. When I was growing up, it was just the parents, now it's the grandparents. Jews don't farm. Jews don't go to the land. No, we're doctors and we're lawyers, we're professionals. We left all that behind 3,000 years ago. So the conversation between these two communities, adjacent but different.
Yeah.
But also, the land was also denied to us.
Right.
You know, Jews shall not own land. Except, by the way, that's why you need to know your black Jewish history. In Brazil, also in the 1600s, 15 to 1600s, Zumbi, an African king who ran the Free Republic of Palmares, one of the first republics in the New World free, invited the Jews who had come to Brazil who were running away from the Inquisition. He said, no Jew, no Muslim will be denied right of freedom of religion or right of land in this place.
Yep.
Just as no African will be denied worship of the Munkisi and the Orisha here in this space.
Yep, oldest synagogue
Right.
in these continents is in Recife.
Right? Because you don't hear the stories that are not white and Christian based, you believe only democracy and freedom come from white Christians. No, it came from a black man who said, to hell with this. Haiti, to hell with this. Nat, Gabriel, and the rest of them, to hell with this. And by the way, every partisan that blew up every Nazi, to hell with this. So, and as much as we are not, when we want ideas and peace and shalom, we also want revolutions in the minds and the hearts and the feet and the wallet.
Yes.
Whatever we can do to never go back.
Yes.
Because to hell with this. Y'all got my meaning. And that's the point of our garden. You know, you're not gonna give me salt herring and salt pork and some hominy and some corn and call it a day. I'm gonna make sure my children eat their greens and their okra and they remember where they come from. And because of those mamas and those daddies, we know exactly where we come from. That's that. Asheo.
Yeah.
Amin.
Shkoyach. We could be here all night. It would be a really, really
Like
nice
Seder.
thing, but yes, exactly. Oh, wait, have we eaten yet? When are we going to eat? Michael, thank you so much.
No, thank you. The perfect person to have this with.
Well, let's do it some more.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay? This guy.
I want to thank the center, the Jewish Community Center here. I want to thank everyone. We had a great program before together. I want to thank Bechol Lashon for bringing me here originally many years ago to San Francisco. I want to thank Rabbi Ruth Adar and Brian Terry and Chef Wanda and other people who, the last time I was here with the Cooking Gene, I felt so welcome and so loved. And this place is very special to me. It's been special to me since the first time I was 16 years old and I picked up my first introduction to Barbary Lane many years ago. And I just want to tell you, from Armistead and up to now, thank you, San Francisco. Thank you, Bay Area. Thank you, Oakland. Thank you for, being one of the few places in this world where I feel completely me and apologetic, no apologies needed, effortlessly me. Thank you.
Oh. I'm all misty.